Okay. Okay, welcome back to Wellness Wave. My name is Phil George. I'm a clinical biochemist, a certified personal trainer, and a health coach. And this is going to be an unusual show because normally either I'm being interviewed or I'm interviewing somebody else. So this is a solo show. So let's see what happens. I thought a lot about this show, maybe the best way of doing it, and I think the best way of doing it is I also have a radio show on WCRN called Wellness Wave Radio, and we get a lot of people calling in with a lot of questions. I get emails. In fact, you can see on the screen there my email address, philgeorge@charter.net. So if you have any questions you want me to cover on the air, either on this show or on my radio show, just email me. And if you're curious about it, I can almost guarantee you everybody else is curious about it. The other thing I'm starting now with the radio show, and I'm also going to introduce it to the TV, is maybe have guests on. We could do kind of like you could ask me any questions you want. If you had any specific questions about your health, exercise, nutrition. Again, if you have the questions, most everybody else has the same questions. So again, email me, philgeorge@charter.net, if you want to come on this show, or if you want to share information. If you have, in fact, we're having on pretty soon, we have a company on a gym right in Leicester called Atlantic Athletics, and they're going to be on the show. And we have a couple other Leicester businesses are going to be on the show. So if you're you're any business, but especially we want to promote Leicester businesses. If you want to come on the show and share information and have questions, we'd love to have you on. So what I'm going to do, I'm going to cover. I had a question that was called in on the radio show, and the question was specifically about sleep. So a lot of people have trouble sleeping, obviously, and I don't know if people actually realize how important sleep actually is. So the questions I got was, should I be taking melatonin? And for the viewership that doesn't know what melatonin is what they call the sleep hormone, and it's actually released by a part of your endocrine system called the pineal gland. So the pineal gland releases it. Now, everybody wants to know, what should I do? Should I be taking, melatonin? Should I be doing this? Should I be doing that? And one of the easiest way of looking at it is we're really, when you come down to it, we're really smart monkeys. So, and I just dropped my mic thing here, so let me pick this up and put it over here. So we're really come down to we're really smart monkeys, and just like with monkeys, we're basically driven by what's called our circadian rhythms. So the light, in terms of like we used to blue light bulbs and things like that, they've only been around for less than 100 years. So one of the problems with that is we're not used to having light 24/7. The way it works with the circadian rhythm is a lot of people don't realize, but when the sun comes up first thing in the morning, it has a different hue. In other words, it's mostly blue light. So what it tells us, and again, we've gone back millions of years in evolution, so our body is hardwired to do this. So the sun comes up and it's very blue. It's mostly a blue hue. What that means is it actually shuts down our pineal gland, shuts it down to stop releasing the melatonin. That's the reason why, again, the whole idea is we're tied to the rhythm of the sun. As the day goes on, it goes more till the midday, it starts switching over from a blue hue to a red hue. And towards evening, when the sun goes down, it goes extremely red. When that red hue kicks in, what happens is then the pineal gland starts releasing that melatonin like crazy, and that's the signal for our body to go to sleep. Now, unfortunately, what's happened is I can see around me, I got blue light everywhere. So what it's doing is this blue light is telling my pineal gland basically to shut down the melatonin, and that's the reason why I'm not sleepy now. So one of the keys is, and if you think about it, we got our cell phones. We're looking at that. That's blue light. We got our TV. We got our monitors. It's all blue lights, and that's what's interfering with our sleep. A lot of the medical community now believes that's one of our key problems is we're constantly being exposed to this blue light. Now, I know on my Apple phone I have something called the night shift. And what the night shift does, it changes the blue light on the iPhone over to a red light. So again, it allows us to get back to our circadian rhythm. They also have that, I'm sure, in a Google phone, and they have it. So that's one thing. Unfortunately, most people are looking at this blue light all the time. So they're constantly suppressing their melatonin production. They have, and I was going to bring it with me today, unfortunately I forgot it, you have something called blue light blocking glasses. They have this on Amazon. And what it does is, it's kind of a reddish glass. It's a reddish glass, and what it does is it blocks the blue light, so it doesn't mess up your pineal gland and messes up your melatonin. Again, email me, philgeorge@charter.net. I'll send you blue light glasses, blue light blocking glasses that I use. The other thing people talk a lot about in terms of what kind of supplements should I take, and this particular caller had asked me about melatonin, and melatonin does work. But you really want to go more to, our evolution, which is you want to cut back, you want to definitely cut back on the blue light. So that's the first thing. So if you can't cut out your TV, get these blue light blocking glasses, these red glasses. And what it'll do, you can watch TV and the rest of the stuff, but it'll filter out. So that's a cheap way of doing it. The other thing the caller asked is he wanted to know specifically about magnesium. Now, magnesium is a crucial mineral for our body. It's used in so many different things. But a lot of people don't realize magnesium, not all magnesium is the same. So magnesium is bound or called chelated to something else. You think about it kind of like there's something called a cation, which means it's positively charged, or an anion, which means it's negatively charged. So magnesium is bound to something else. So magnesium usually doesn't exist in just what's called its elemental form alone. It does happen. It's called elemental magnesium, but it's kind of hard to get. Most people take it in a pill. So whatever that magnesium molecule is bound to or chelated to, it affects how it works. So one of the things, the best type of magnesium to take in terms of going to sleep, is something called magnesium glycinate, and the magnesium glycinate. I don't want to get too technical here. It's a precursor to something called GABA, and GABA is a very calming neurotransmitter in our brain. So it kind of releases the GABA in our brain. So you got the melatonin being released, and you got the GABA being released from the magnesium glycinate. What happens is, again, it calms you down, ready to go to sleep. Now, if you want magnesium to be awake, there's something called magnesium L-threonate, and that kind of keeps you going. So you got to be careful. Not all magnesium is the same. Those are the two, also what they call bioavailable, the kind that your body can actually use. So again, email me, philgeorge@charter.net. I'll send you. You got to be careful with your supplements. A lot of supplements are made in China, India, and they have very poor quality control, so you have to be careful. Not all supplements are the same. I curate all my supplements. I'm a health ambassador to a lot of supplements companies, and I will research it and make sure it's clean and there's no contaminants and no heavy metals and stuff like that in it. So you got to be careful where you get your magnesium from. The other thing a lot of people don't realize is a lack of sleep is tied very strong to Alzheimer's and dementia. So what happens is when you sleep, there's different phases of sleep. There's three basic phases. There's light sleep, there's REM sleep or dream sleep, where your eyes move a lot, and then there's deep sleep. The most important part of those three parts of sleep is something called deep sleep. Because with deep sleep, what happens is it goes. You have something. You've got your spinal fluid. Inside your spinal fluid is something called the lymphatic system. So what the lymphatic system does is it goes up and it bathes your brain and it cleans out all the amyloid plaque. You guys have probably heard about the amyloid plaque with Alzheimer's and dementia and stuff like that. So that's what it does. So if you don't get enough sleep, what happens is they found a direct correlation between dementia and Alzheimer's and not getting enough deep sleep, where it's the amyloid plaque is being cleared out. So that's one of the things you have to be careful of. So sleep is so important for everything. But if you're worried, a lot of people now are worried about Alzheimer's and dementia, you want to make sure you get enough sleep. There are a lot of devices that actually measure your sleep. Some people will take certain drugs and things like that, like Ambien and stuff like that, to try to go to sleep. But they found out, or they drink themselves to sleep. So they basically, they get hammered and then they go to sleep. That messes up your sleep cycles. So even though you may be knocked out, in fact, I think Michael Jackson used to take these IVs to put him to sleep, and obviously that didn't turn out well for him. So that's one of the problems in terms of taking sleep aids, because you have to go through those 3 normal processes. Those 3 processes of the light sleep, the REM sleep, and the deep sleep, that takes about 90 minutes. So it's a 90-minute cycle. You have to go through all those 3 cycles to get the correct amount of sleep. So that's something to be aware of. There's a lot of devices now that do it. There's the Apple Watch, and they will actually track all your sleep. When you wake up, you'll be able to look. In fact, I do something called an Oura Ring. It's kind of like a Fitbit on steroids. And each morning I wake up and I look at my phone, and it tells me you get this much light sleep, this much deep sleep. It measures my body temperature. It measures it measures all kinds of things. So what that allows me to do to see if I'm getting the correct amount of sleep, and if I find out that I'm not getting the correct amount of sleep, or I'm getting a great amount of deep sleep, REM sleep, and stuff like that, then I look, what did I do the night before? Did I go to bed at a certain time? Did I was looking too much blue light? Or was I wearing my blue light blocking glasses? So that's what I want to find out. So these devices are relatively inexpensive, so you may want to check that out to see what's going on. Oh, the other thing that's good about that, if a lot of people have sleep apnea, where they have trouble breathing, what this Oura Ring does, and I'm assuming the Apple Watch does, I don't know for a fact, what it does, it also will measure your breathing throughout the night, how many breathing interruptions you've had. So that'll give you a pretty good idea if maybe you need a sleep apnea device to get you through the whole thing. So instead of going and get a sleep study, I'd go to a hospital and they have to figure this stuff out. That's expensive. That's obviously, it's a nuisance. Again, email me, philgeorge@charter.net. I'll send you, there's an Oura Ring is really good for this, used by a lot of professional athletes, or Apple Watch. So you may want to see if you have sleep apnea. That's one issue, because there's big correlation between sleep apnea and also heart disease and also dementia. So that's a major problem. One of the other things, a new thing's happening now, it may sound kind of goofy, but what people are doing is it's very important to breathe through your nose, because in your nose you have something called cilia, and cilia, it kind of cleans things out. The nose hairs are there for a reason. It's to keep the dust out. But the other thing, the cilia is tied to your brain, and it releases something called nitric oxide. So what nitric oxide does, it's called a vasodilator. It makes your blood vessels larger. So you always want to breathe through your nose. In fact, if you're exercising or anything like that, you want to breathe through your nose. They also found out that nose breathers are much better than mouth breathers, because what happens is with mouth breathers, they wind up deforming their jaw. So you want to be able to breathe through your nose as much as possible. So what some people are doing now, this happened for the last few years, they're actually taping their mouths when they go to sleep. So they're forcing them to breathe through their nose. So if you're snoring, you can't breathe through your mouth. It forces you to breathe through your nose. And there's something called micropore tape. They use it in hospitals so it doesn't, rip up your lips. Again, email me, philgeorge@charter.net. I'll send you some links to micropore tape. So that's another thing you can do to make sure you're breathing through your nose and not through your mouth. The other thing a lot of people talk about in terms of sleep is, again, sleep times. When's the best time to go to sleep? They've done many studies on this, and what they found is one of the most important things is to go to bed at the same time and wake up at the same time. We talked a lot about circadian rhythms. Your body is tied to the sun, but it's also your body gets used to going to sleep at a particular time and getting up at a certain time. There was a very famous study out of Stanford in which they measured different students' performance in tests, and they found out that people that performed the best, that were the best cognitively of other students, is when they went to bed at the same time and got up at the same time. Even do this on weekends, because again, your body is tied to these particular rhythms, and if you mess up the rhythms, you're also going to mess up your sleep. The other hint in terms of when you go to bed, if you're going to watch TV or look at your computer, wear the blue block glasses, because it's going to block that out. The other thing they found, if you can keep your room as cool as possible, what happens is, again, this goes into evolutionary biology. When millions of years ago, when we were roaming the jungles and stuff, what happens, obviously, at night things get cooler. So a cooling temperature triggers your body. It's time to go to sleep. So you want to keep your room as cool as possible. The other thing you want to do is you want to block out as much light as you possibly can. Because what happens is, even if your eyes are closed, what happens is light will still pass. Your brain is still aware that there's light out there. Again, we're tied to these circadian rhythms. So what you want to do is you want to make sure that that it's blocked out. Block out your curtains. Do as much as you can in terms of blocking everything out, and that'll help. Also, keep it as cool as possible in the room. So if you do all those things, forget about all the medications, stuff like that. These are just simple things, no cost things that you can actually do to help you sleep. So again, blue block glasses. Keep the temperature cool. Try to breathe through your nose. If you think you can tape up your mouth. It'll seem kind of goofy, but it works. It's been around for a few years. A lot of people are doing that now with actually taping up their mouth. And remember, always breathe through your nose. The other question I got was also to do specifically. They wanted to know about apple cider vinegar. This gets a little bit into glucose, and most people know is a big problem now with people being overweight, obese, type 2 diabetes. And that's due mainly to the fact that we're consuming way too many carbohydrates and way too much sugar. So what happens is when you take in sugar, your body does not like sugar. And what happens is when you take in sugar, your body wants to get it out of your bloodstream as quickly as possible. And one of the reasons for that is what happens if you have too much sugar in your body. The joke I like to make on my radio show, if when you watch the Super Bowl or whatever, and when the coach wins, they throw the big thing of Gatorade over his head. If that was actually Gatorade, he'd be real sticky. That kind of what happens in your body. If you have sugar in your body and you can't get rid of it fast enough, what happens is you have something called glycation, a fancy word, but all it means is the sugar gets attached to your proteins, and your proteins don't work very well. A lot of people think proteins are stagnant, they don't do anything, but actually proteins are like little motors, and they move around and they do different things. What happens is if you get glycation, the actual biochemical word for it is advanced glycation end products, AGE, easy to remember. What'll happen is it'll actually get attached to different parts of your proteins, it'll get inside your joints, it'll do all kinds of nasty things to you, where you can't get around as much. It causes a lot of inflammation. So again, the problem is with that. A lot of people, there's a new phrase they're using now in medicine. It's called inflammaging. It means as you get older, you get more and more inflammation. Your knees start hurting, your hips hurt, pretty much everything hurts. Because this glycation, this sugar attached to all of these different joints is messing up where we can't work correctly. So, long-winded way of getting into what's white apple cider vinegar. You have something called a glucose disposal agent. Again, sorry for the fancy word. All it means is when the blood sugar gets into your body, what happens is different things will take it and put it into your muscle. Your muscle is a huge sugar hog, and what it does is the first place that sugar will go, well, actually, the first place it goes is into your liver, and it forms something called cause the glycation in your liver, but it's stored in your liver, or glycogen. It's called glycogen is the storage form of glucose. When that's filled up, it has no place to go. So if you have any kind of muscle mass, but you want as much muscle mass as you can, again, goes back to evolutionary biology, to where, again, if the tiger's chasing us, we're going to run away. We need strong muscles. So the muscles want to suck in as much sugar as they can to keep them moving and doing and acting correctly. So if you have the muscle mass, it's called the glucose disposal agent. It goes right into the muscle. The other thing that's a glucose disposal agent, and what this caller asked about, was specifically apple cider vinegar. There's a form of apple cider vinegar called Bragg's, B-R-A-G-G-S. It's been around forever. There's two kinds of apple cider vinegar. One of them is processed, in other words, heated up and stuff like that. If you heat something up, you do what's called denature it. You change the chemical composition. So Bragg's is raw, unfiltered. It's real apple cider vinegar. And what they found is if you take apple cider vinegar before each meal, what it does is it stops the sugar from glycating into your different proteins in your body and your joints and stuff like that, and it shuttles it over into your muscles. So that's what's really good about apple cider vinegar. One caution about apple cider vinegar is you don't want to be drinking it over your teeth, because it'll eventually damage the enamel. What I like to do is I like to take apple cider vinegar pills, still raw. It's in a pill. So before each meal, what I'll do is I'll take the apple cider vinegar. Again, what it'll do is it'll put that sugar, instead of putting it into my fat cells and things like that, what it'll do is it'll put it directly into my muscles. So if you take apple cider vinegar tablet before each meal, what'll happen is it'll help get rid of make you more insulin sensitive. In other words, insulin is what drives the glucose into the cells. So with the insulin, what happens, it makes the cells more sensitive. So it gets into the cells a lot easier. So the other thing I would recommend to all my clients is also to take the apple cider vinegar right before you go to bed. Because what the apple cider vinegar does, again, it's going to shuttle all those carbs, all that sugar into your muscles. The other big benefit of apple cider vinegar, and again, this was, in fact, you can check it out if you want to go to WCRN and go down to the bottom, so Wellness Wave Radio. I did a whole show on this, and again, into a little bit more detail about exactly, the glucose disposal agents and apple cider vinegar. So all the shows are listed right there. The other big benefit of apple cider vinegar that this gentleman actually pointed out when he called in is we have a pH in our blood, and it's a very narrow range. But because we consume so many lousy foods, what happens is most people have what they call a more acidic pH in your body, which means your body is more acidic than it's supposed to be. They've done multiple studies on this, and in terms of actually having an acidic pH in your blood, it's a harbinger for cancer. Cancer loves an acidic pH, so you don't want your blood to be acidic. So what apple cider vinegar does, once it gets into your stomach, it sounds kind of counterintuitive because this is an acid, but your body takes it in, and what it'll do, it'll convert the rest of your body into more of an alkaline state. So it'll get you into a healthier state. The other thing with an acidity, it also causes a lot of inflammation in the body. So that's another real benefit of apple cider vinegar. The other issue is with acidity, your stomach is extremely acidic. In other words, the gastric juice in your stomach is extremely acidic. In fact, our stomach acid is more acidic than a wolf's, and a wolf is a carnivore. The only animal that's more acidic than we are in terms of our stomach acid is a vulture, because vultures eat dead things. So we have a very acidic stomach acid, and the reason we have it, again, this goes back to evolutionary biology. We were running around probably eating half-dead things too. So the acidity in your stomach, what it does is it will kill any bacteria, any viruses, anything. The other thing, when you digest food, the first thing the part is when you chew, you're breaking the food down. You're breaking the food down. and then you swallow it, and then when it goes into your stomach, it starts breaking it apart, especially meat. Okay, meat is very, very hard to digest, so you need a very strong acidity in your stomach. Unfortunately, as we get older, the acidity in our stomach gets less and less acidic. So it makes it harder and harder to break the food down. Now, one of the major problems as people get old is what they call GERD, or acid reflux. You hear that all the time. And they normally will put you on something called a PPI, which stands for a proton pump inhibitor. And if you look, this called a black box warning on all of the PPIs. It says, don't take this for an extended period of time, because you're doubling down. In other words, you're making your stomach acid even less acidic than it already is. And what they found studies with that, the other thing you need stomach acid for is to be able to take iron into your body. Unless your stomach is not acidic enough, you cannot get into iron. You're going to wind up with type of anemia. The other problem with having not enough stomach acid is you cannot absorb calcium very well. So that can lead to osteopenia or osteoporosis. In other words, a breaking down of the calcium in your bone. And that's a major problem for women after they reach, perimenopause or menopause. So it causes a lot of problems. What will happen, they found people that are on PPIs for an extended period of time, they have what they call spontaneous fractures. Their bones get so weak that they'll just fracture over some minor thing. So feel free to email me, Phil George at charter.net. I'll send you studies on this. But unfortunately, a lot of people are on PPIs. I take the opposite view. What I do is I actually will take more stomach acid. I'll take apple cider vinegar. I want to up my stomach acid, because it's my theory, and I have studies to show this. You have something between your esophagus and your stomach. It's called the sphincter valve, and it looks like this, and it kind of keeps all the food down there. So what happens is when this opens up, the food in the stomach, it goes back up. It winds up going into your esophagus. So that's one of the big problem. So it's my theory, it's not so much the stomach acid that's the problem. What's happened is your stomach acid cannot digest the food correctly. If you're eating meat and things like that, it's not totally digested, so it winds up going back through the sphincter. So that's the reason why, for me anyway. Again, this is not medical advice. I'm not a doctor. I'm not telling you, talk to your doctor, but I'll send you studies. But for me, I did have what they call silent acid reflux, and I get some stuff, and I've seen every doctor, and they told me do a PPI. I didn't do the PPI. I did more apple cider vinegar. And the other thing you can do, if you don't have enough stomach acid, you have something called proteolytic enzymes. And what these do is, guys probably know about meat tenderizer. You put it on, tenderizes the meat. So what proteolytic enzymes do, they break the meat up. So again, I already have a predisposition for silent acid reflux. So in addition to my apple cider vinegar, I also take proteolytic enzymes. Not to get too technical, but your pancreas secretes two major enzymes. One of them is amylase, and amylase breaks down carbohydrates. And the other one is protease, and protease breaks down meat. So what I do eat a lot of meat. So what I'll do is I'll take these proteolytic enzymes ahead of time. It helps digest and I've pretty much done away with my silent acid reflux. Again, this is not medical advice, but this is what I do. But there are definite dangers, and I'll send you tons of studies on why PPIs over an extended period of time, proton pump inhibitors, are not, in my opinion, not a good thing to take. So we're coming up towards the end of the show. The last thing I wanted to mention, I did this. In fact, I broke this on my show. They found out with any kind of wheat-based or oat-based cereals like Cheerios or Quaker Oats, they're finding that there's a lot of toxins in there. So this is all over the news. So if I were you, I wouldn't eat any type of oat-based cereals, especially Cheerios or Quaker or Quaker Oats, whatever the oatmeal. Those are the two ones they found. There's a lot of toxins in there. So go online. It's all over YouTube. They go into great detail about that. So I just want to wrap up. Again, love to have you on the show. You want to come on the show, we'll have a conversation. You got questions about sleep, your diet, anything, we'll talk about it. You'll help other people. If you have a business in Leicester and you want to come on the show and promote your business, like Atlantic Athletics, I've had Dr. Pete with with platelet-rich plasma, stem cell therapies. I have a lot of people on my TV show. I've had every conceivable expert. I've had vascular surgeons on, podiatrists, ophthalmologists, you name it. We have a lot of really good shows. You can, again, go to WCRN, scroll to the bottom of the page, and you'll find all the shows on there. Or if you want any questions answered here directly, on the show, again, email me, philgeorge@charter.net. We'll answer your questions. Come on the show. And I think I'm running out of time. So that's all for me, and we'll see you next week with a brand new show. Thanks for tuning in. One of the most common questions I'm asked as a biochemist and health coach is, what are the best supplements to take? Choosing supplements is a tricky business. Many companies have poor quality control and questionable ingredients. In the past, I had to send clients to several different websites. I am now able to offer one-stop shopping for all the quality brands I recommend, with no shipping cost and a lower price in most cases. Just email me, philgeorge@charter.net, for a free consult.